So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. My name is Petr Nemeth. I'm the CEO of Dataddo. And today, the topic of the webinar is data security and its best practices, especially with the focus when you are using ETL or ELT. Of course, this webinar is interactive. So let's say for the first 20-25 minutes, I will be, presenting some information about data security, and of course there will be room for your questions. So of course, in case there is some point that came into your interest, or of course if you have something to add, feel free to reach out at the end of this session for the questions. And of course, in case you would like to know something more offline, so for instance, you don't come up to some question now, but you come up with something later, feel free to reach out to me via my email address, which is petr.nemeth@dataddo.com. So right now, I think we are ready to start. So welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for the joining. And today's topic, as I already mentioned, is a data security and the best practices of it when using ETL or ELT platform, especially with the focus on that. So when it comes to the agenda of let's say our today's webinar, so I would like to primarily talk about the basic principles that is good to focus on when you're when you would like to introduce a data security measures, compliance policies into your organization. So I will be specifically talking about the three of them, which I have picked and I believe are, let's say, absolutely crucial when it comes to executing your data security policies. It's a separation of concerns, exclusion of sensitive data, and hashing of the sensitive data. And of course, because Dataddo is, let's say, one of the ETL, ELT providers, and of course, for us, the data security is one of the key concerns. So then I will be dedicating the last point of my webinar towards the what kind of data security measures we are actually applying. At Dataddo. So why data security matters? Sorry. The reason, of course, it's not only the compliance, although unfortunately for many of the organization and for many of the people that are involved in this topic, this might be the primary motivation. But what is extremely important to mention is that with the, let's say, proliferation of the ETL, ELT tools, of course, Dataddo is one of those vendors as well. Those tools actually allows very, very easy distribution of the data across the organization and, of course, across the various systems. So, of course, what the ETL, ELT, or data pipelining software does is essentially allow you to extract the data from one system and send it to the different one. Of course, there is lots of different benefits of that, mainly, enabling a different business department to actually achieve, various data policies and make the data sharing extremely easy and, easily executable by even these days by non-technical people. But of course, the potential drawback might be that this can create some potential security risks. And of course, today I would like to talk about those potential security risks, how we are actually addressing them, and what is our, let's say, suggestion to make sure that you are always staying compliant. So of course, when you are extracting the data from one system, so let's say it could be your CRM platform. So let's say we could be talking about a system like Salesforce, HubSpot, and others. You are essentially extracting the data from an environment when the access is quite strictly controlled. So there is a finite list of people who actually have the access to your Salesforce data. There is typically RBAC, role-based access control to the particle data. So inside your CRM system, you have the full control on your data. However, when you deploy a data pipelining, ETL, ELD, or any sort of data governance platform, it means that you extract the data from those systems and you might be delivering them to your data warehouse. And of course, again, depending on the various policies, depending on the fact how you extract the data, it might easily end up in the situation that the data that you are actually extracting from your CRM system are being sent to the data warehouse. And inside those data, many useful information such as the value of the particular deals, if we are talking about the CRM or the name of the company, might be some sensitive data like email addresses, telephone numbers. And of course, if you are extracting the data for the purpose of doing a data analytics, those information might not be necessary for performing a various data analytics task, but may cause a potential security issues. So there is from the perspective of the data privacy. So from the perspective of looking at it from the data governance point of view, you have a CRM system with a very tight access control on the one side, and on the other side you have a different system when you are sending the data. And of course there might be a misalignment between the actual access control. So there is a finite amount of people that can access the data from the CRM platform or any other system from which you are actually extracting the data, versus the people that can access the data in the data warehouse that might not be completely disconnected from the actual owners of the data, and this can create a potential problems. The potential problem, of course, is that some of the secure data might be leaked. So imagine a situation when you from various data workloads, you would like to analyze the information about your performance. So what you're going to do, you connect your HR system to your data warehouse, you extract some information from that, and what could happen is that so you are actually able to analyze the performance of each employee. You are able to analyze how many hours they stay at the work, etc. But of course, besides those data, might be some data of more sensitive nature, like data about his or her payroll, or their social security numbers and stuff like that. And of course, you want to make sure that those situations will not happen, because at the end of the day, especially when the larger organizations are in place, you or your data analytics team might not be fully authorized to actually work with such information, and of course this can create a lot of problems. Not only from the trust perspective, not only from the perspective that such data or such information can potentially cause a harm, but of course there is a lot of potential problem, especially when your organization needs to be or must be compliant with the various standards like GDPR, POPIA, or even when the organization is under the auditing from SOC 2 type 2, and of course similar bodies. So how to actually achieve and avoid such situation? So as I mentioned at the beginning, there are 3 principles that is good to follow, and I will start with the first one, which is the separation of concerns. The separation of concerns, in this case, this was the term separation of concerns basically means that you want to make sure that the workloads between the different systems inside the organizations are actually being strictly distributed and strictly divided. And the question is, of course, how this can be applied to the data analytics. So originally, when the separation of concerns took place, was that you wanted to, or the people that were deploying that were deploying such mechanism, they wanted to prevent of the overloading of the core systems. So the simple case is that you are running a e-commerce store, for instance. You have a central production database, which of course needs to be up. You need to make sure that the database is always up and running. So this is extremely important. But at the same time, because you are an e-commerce company, you would like to have the access to all the information about how the particular product is performing, how the particular customer is performing, what is the lifetime value, and of course those are the vital information that you can get from your production database. But so when you start hiring a data analyst into your organization, or data engineers into your organization, the first task that they will ask for is the access to the database, because of course it naturally contains all those important information, and the job of the data analyst or data scientist, whatever you call it, is actually to dig for such important information. But a person who is responsible for actually running that kind of system, we can call it an operations manager or the CTO, they really, from the nature of their job, they don't want to allow that, because of course when you let somebody to run a various analytical queries against your production system or against your production database, it can easily overload the system and effectively cause a significant harm to your business, like essentially causing potentially some downtimes to the production database. And of course, if you are a e-commerce platform, this can result that there is a downtime to your whole business. So then of course came the idea, so how about to let's say replicate the data from the production database into a analytical database, for instance, which is of course a little bit more suitable for running such queries, and give the data analyst some sort of sandbox environment where they can essentially play with the data. So of course the original concept was to somehow separate the concerns mainly from the, let's say, performance or let's say perspective of disaster recovery, so to speak, or avoiding the disaster. But when this is being executed properly, you can also make sure that when the concerns are separated properly, it actually allows you to select only the subsets that you are actually needing for analyzing the data. So imagine a situation that you want to analyze the information about your customers. You want to calculate the customer lifetime value, and of course you have a data analyst that is in charge of that. And does he or she need all those information about the customers? Does he or she need the email address? Does she need the actual address, postcode? Probably not. So with the separation of concerns, of course, you can either achieve overall system stability, so to speak, but also you can make sure that when the access is allowed at the row level, you can actually make sure that you can write such replication queries, or you can write such replication mechanism that the data that shouldn't be distributed or that shouldn't be sent to the analytical database are not being sent at all. And of course, this can create some sort of shield against all the potential problems that I have named at the beginning of this session. The second part that is, or the second good principle that is good to follow is to make sure that whenever it's necessary, you are excluding the sensitive data from the actual extraction, and we can call a data distribution process. So what I'm showing here in this slide is a typical output of the many tools that are allowing the ELT, which basically gives you the capability of extracting the data from the various platforms, various API, and then essentially dump all the data to your data warehouse and let you do the various transformations in the tools like dbt and others to deal with the transformations, to normalize the data, to clean the data, and some sort of create something useful from that. Of course, the problem with that is, as you can see here, there is always a full data set included, meaning that whatever sensitive information might be here, it's actually already being sent to your data warehouse, and of course you have to deal with that at the later stages. So this is actually one of the, in my personal opinion, one of the biggest drawback of the various ELT tools, specifically because the concept itself gets all the data and dump them to your data warehouse, which in many cases, especially when dealing with the data privacy and data security, might not be a good idea. So in the next slide, I will actually show you how Dataddo is approaching this problem of excluding the sensitive data. So with our connectors, we actually allow you to select, because we are actually normalizing data at the extraction level. We call this concept ETLT. So doing, let's say, a partial transformations. So we are actually allowing users to select which of the columns, which of the particle attributes they want to see in their data warehouse, therefore preventing getting the sensitive or potentially sensitive data to your data warehouse. This, of course, means that at this level, we can actually guarantee that all in the data that you select inside the connector will be put into your data model, and of course, consequently sent to your data warehouse. We are also working on the features where, for some of the connectors, you will be able to choose the data privacy policy that you want to be compliant with, and the system will automatically exclude such informations. So of course, this will become available at some point next year. It's definitely on one of our, let's say, priority roadmap. But already with the existing setup, we can guarantee that at the extraction level, no unnecessary and of course potentially sensitive data will be extracted unless you specifically set the system to do so. And of course, this can greatly reduce your risk when it comes to potential issues with the data security and of course with the compliance. And last thing I would like to talk about is the actual data hashing, because in the previous point I have been talking about data exclusion, which is great because you are actually preventing the data to get to your data warehouse at the first place. But sometimes it might not be a good option, because you need to have some sort of customer identifier or any other identifier that can be potential sensitive information. So for instance, email address can be potentially considered as a sensitive information. But at the same time, it might suit as a good customer identifier, because based on the email address, you can actually pair the particular data set with another data set and perhaps with another information. So kind of, create a little bit more complex data models. And if this is the case, if you have a sensitive information that has a, let's say, that has a value as an identifier, the good practice here is to use what can be called as a data hashing, or sometimes even called data masking, which essentially creates a hash. A hash, for those that are not familiar with that, is actual product of the function, or let's say one-way encrypting function. So meaning that when you have the input, it always creates a constant output from the same input, but you cannot basically decrypt the value of the hash. So this is example of my email address, how it will be hashed using the SHA-256 algorithm. And this is the practice that you should be using when you are in such situation where you have a potentially sensitive data. You need to use them as identifiers, but of course you would like to avoid of being put into the risk of going outside the compliance issues, or you might have some you might want to avoid some additional data risks here. And of course, last thing that I would like to talk about is how we are actually approaching the data security at Dataddo. What is good to mention here is that you can treat a data security as some sort of onion inside your organization. You have especially when you are working with the data, you have the multiple systems that are actually working with the data. And as a good practice is to make sure that all of these systems are actually compliant with all those various standards that you would like to be compliant to as well. So for instance, Dataddo is SOC2 Type 2 certified, which means that whatever product whatever data product is actually built on top of the data, on top of Dataddo, our certification is being passed to that product as well. Therefore, we can guarantee the level of the data protection of the data security that is, let's say, under our control. And when you are building your data product on top of our platform, you are only, let's say, as a vendor or as a provider responsible for that part, because the part that is being, let's say, handled by us is already being covered by our security certification. We are also compliant with the major data protection standards. So I have already mentioned GDPR. I have mentioned CCPA, POPIA, and what we are actually working on, and I have already mentioned that in the past, is to bring more data compliancy and data privacy features right into the connector definition. So as I mentioned, you will be able to directly, when you are defining the connectors, you will be able to select your compliancy policy, and based on that compliancy policies, we will either automatically hash or we will deselect the particle items from the data model, so they are not being delivered. To your data warehouse or to any of your destination at all. We also, by default, encrypt the data. As you know that we are processing data, especially when it comes to providing the data transfers. So everything is always encrypted. We are using IES 25256, which is a military grade standard for the encryption. And of course, last but not least, we provide the operation logs to all the things that are happening in our platform, which is again a extremely important part of the compliance, to make sure that really whatever is happening with the data when it comes to like extraction, writing operations, there is a clear control of who was the owner, who was the initiator, what was the actual result, and when that particular operation happened. So I believe today this is everything from my side. I don't know if we have any questions so far. I believe not. If you do, we have a still couple of minutes left, so feel free to raise your hand if you want. Yeah, Sean, I believe you have a question, right?
Yeah, so it's in regards to the hashing section of the slides. Is generally speaking, it's fine for longer items such as email addresses perhaps, but I do see some weaknesses when it comes to shorter things like social security numbers. I think there's only 1 billion different combinations of social security numbers. So if someone really wanted to, they could brute force all the possible social security numbers and actually end up getting the hashes for that. So in those instances, then would you suggest going against providing hashes for shorter items like that, or how would you go about that?
Let's say here it's actually depends which kind of hashing algorithm you will choose. So of course there are older hashing algorithms like MD5 or SHA1, which has been already broken, and of course there is a fairly large amount of rainbow tables that exist, especially when it comes to the email addresses and when it comes to the passwords. For the let's say newer standards like SHA 256 or SHA 512. This is the one that I would actually recommend to use. Those are still considered as a safe. So even let's say if let's say you are dealing with sensitive information, those hashing algorithms are still considered as a safe, and I'm sure that they will be considered for some time. But it's extremely important to make sure that you are using the right hashing mechanism. Definitely, if the information is such sensitive as a social security number, never use things like MD5. And of course, the best practice, if you are unsure or if you have some extra concern, do not, let's say, put it into the extraction process at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the question. Of course, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me via email address. I believe it's actually written here. Of course, this is the hash version. And thanks a lot for joining today. And I will looking forward to see you in the next webinar.